Mm.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our Mentorship Monday. Today, we have the awesome Nico Steyn in the room with us. Nico, thank you so much for joining. And we run a Women in Business program, and today's topic, this week's topic, the past week was marketing and branding. So, this is just such a lovely way to get into the Monday and focus on a topic that's so important to so many of us in business. And you and I have been chatting for a while, and LinkedIn is just such an important tool to use as well. So I can't wait to hear from you about this new initiative that you've launched to get your LinkedIn posts out there. How do you actually go about doing it? How do you get your brand speaking? So those of you that have joined us, that are from a space of, I've just been through this exercise. Please bear with us. There are lots of new faces on the line. And if you've joined us via YouTube as well, via our recording, thank you for enriching yourselves with the knowledge it takes to grow your business. And today on the line with us, we have Nico Steyn. So Nico, I'm going to hand over to you. And thank you so much for your time and being our mentor today and our technical expert. So over to you.
Thank you, Jayshree. That is so scary to be a technical expert because I'm not. But thank you for your confidence. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the time. I'm really looking forward to the session, and I am, with that, getting ready to push that start button. But I just quickly arranged all my slides for me in front of me. So here we go. Quick introduction, just a little bit about me. I'm not going to do a lot of talk about that. I started my career very early in television. I was some 21 years old when I started at Mnet, and I quickly found myself as a creative director. And in that space, which turns over high volumes of creative stuff constantly, I had to work to find new ways to be creative, to work in the innovation space, to work with brainstorming, to work with the wonderful material of Dr. Edward de Bono. In fact, is how Jayshree and I got to meet many years ago, somewhere in the 90s. And in this brought me into a space of entrepreneurship where I've been working for probably the last 15 to 20 years, coaching and mentoring and working with entrepreneurs, particularly in the video space and messaging. And more recently, over the last 6 months or so, I've been working a lot with people in marketing and brand and message, which is really what I'm doing here today. I'm going to talk about brands and branding and how you can create effective and impactful messaging when you talk online. So it's really about discovering a little bit of something about your brand and about what the brand message is and how people perceive your brand. And we're going to do a few exercises today around that. So stick around, grab a piece of paper. You're probably going to have to make some notes, and then we'll kick it off and get going. Now, I was talking about the work that I did over the last 6 months, and in one particular situation, this is a case study. I'm quickly borrowing something from a company called Robo Steam Train, and they're not called that anymore, so don't look for their website. But when I first got to work with them, this was their logo, and they were a beautiful company. They'd been going for 3 years already, and they wanted to get their brand message out for international sponsorship. Now, they're a company that, if you look at the logo, and we did this as a little survey, if you look at the logo, you'd think that they probably do toys or miniature train sets or something in the line of Steam or retro, but they're not. They do fantastic work in coding. And in the process of doing a brand audit with them, we really decided together. In fact, it's a very brave client who decided that she really wanted to go with a new name. And so it actually ended up being a very brave move for a brand to rebrand entirely to African Code, which is just such a beautiful name and a great new look and fresh and something that really points to an international market. And essentially, this is the kind of stuff that may happen when you begin to ask questions about your brand. Now, I always do this first when I look at a brand. I would go, what is the brand about? And what is it communicating? And what is it saying to me as somebody from outside? And so I started working on this material that over the last 6 months to put it together in a kind of a brand playbook. And that's what this material is from that I'm going to share with you a little bit today. It's all material that is gleaned from various exercises that help clients to discover their brand and to fine tune the personality and the visual so that that brand message is consistent and so that it hits impact. So I talked about this idea of a brand audit. A brand is so much more than just a logo or a tagline or something that you put onto your website. It communicates constantly. It talks about position. It talks about key messaging. It has tone. It has a visual language and splendor. There's recognition that happens every time somebody sees even just a color of your brand. It may be sending a message. And in this brand audit, we also look at how people communicate on the socials, how consistent they are, the sentiment, how their audience reads them, whether it's positive or negative, slow, fast moving, and how approachable a brand is. These are all things that we don't think about every day when we post something on LinkedIn, right? So you have to keep that in mind. And of course, we also do a brand audit looking at a website and how the website communicates, the type of information, whether there's over communication, whether there's repeats, how many links there are internally to keep interest and also externally, because remember, those take you away from your website. And then ultimately, SEO and trends and so on. So it's a very thorough brand audit because it helps us to understand how to work with a brand and how to fine tune the messaging ultimately for communication online. Now, there's some good news today. Out of the some 30 exercises or platforms that we use in order to do this brand audit for somebody, I'm going to offer that for somebody today as a surprise. We're going to give one away, a brand audit away to somebody who's here today. And I think the way that we'll do this is probably, Jayshree, I think we're going to ask everybody to put their, if you want to be in the run for this, put your website in the chat, please, and also your name so that Jayshree can decide at the end. I want no responsibility in this. Jayshree is going to decide in the end who gets to get the prize, but one of those we're going to give away a brand audit for you. So get bustling on that. Put your name in there and the website address, please. There we go. We're starting to do it. Now, it doesn't mean that the rest of us are all non-winners and we're going to go home or switch off now. We have something for you too. I'm going to show you how you could get your brand audit going on your own to start getting a sense of how your brand is dialing in. Now, I don't know if you want to give me hands up, but if you have ever used chat just to look at a brand audit, then or if you haven't, then this is the first tip I'm going to share. You can go into chat and ask it to help you to look at how a brand is communicating, and depending on how you prompt it, to ask for particular focus on LinkedIn and look at the languaging, look at the consistency of the message, look at the tone of voice, and just give us some general notes. You'll find a pretty concise and interesting feedback from chat. In some instances, as you know, chat is sometimes a little bit sugar-coated. It's going to say, you may want to consider being more consistent, or you may want to, is not going to do it sort of on the nose by going, well, this really sucks and you need to look at this. But you're going to get some hints if you read between the lines, and it's probably going to give you a fairly broad overview of where your brand sits in terms of online communication. You can even give it your website, and it'll also scan the actual website and tell you what the copy is doing, whether there are too many pictures, whether there are not enough pictures, whether there's over communication. And something on a website you want to look at, of course, is to not repeat too much. And so I also am very careful when I work with talks that I don't repeat myself. So I'm just going to move right on. If there's anything, pop it into the meeting chat and I will get back to it. And of course, we're going to, after 20 minutes of talk, do a little bit of a conversation around this. So that's the first thing. If you want to do a brand audit, you can ask chat to help you. There's also the site I'm going to tell you that helps you a little bit with sentiment. Now, sentiment is really interesting because sometimes somebody would perceive themselves to be cool and hip and happening, but maybe they're not. And sometimes you think that you may be kind and friendly and charming, but sometimes it's not reading that way. And this particular site, I'm going to give you the address of it right now. I ran this for a client, and you can see how it sits into either, is it an excited brand? Is it too relaxed? Is it calm? Is it subdued? Is it tense? Is it nervous? It sort of gives you, based on the languaging that you use, it gives you a very interesting take on how an audience may perceive this brand communication of you in the socials. Also, something that you find interesting on this website is that it'll show you the sentiment, positive or negative. So you'll see whether it's very happy, and this is literally numbers of posts. You see 80 people thinking that it is really in the space of happy and relaxed. And you can see once or twice it saw something that was unhappy. And that may have been somebody who posted something that was a complaint about something, or a negative Monday, or something that was just a little bit off brand. And suddenly the sentiment meter will measure that in the kind of wording that you use in your LinkedIn or in your social media at any rate. So that particular site is called, it's at www.csc2 NCSU, and it's an edu. If you'd like to go and look on their site, it's really interesting. Look for their sentiment meter. And that's a really, really interesting one as well, just to help you to figure out where your voice is sitting when you talk about your brand. Now, the next one that I'm going to do, and that's, in fact, I'm not going to talk too much detail about it, is a site called Nibbler. I don't know if anyone has seen Nibbler. Nibbler.com, you may have to register for the higher detail feedback, but on a free level, you can get quite a lot. And what Nibbler does is goes and it looks at your entire website in terms of communication. Again, it's the kind of thing, remember that everything that we're going to post that is on LinkedIn is hopefully going to engage with the audience in such a way that it is going to take them to your landing page or your website where you're pointing them. This is a means of discovering how that landing page or that home page is communicating with your audience. So Nibbler will tell you whether it's too wordy, whether it's too jargony. It'll tell you whether there are repeats. Some people have websites that repeat the same thing in 6 different phrases. And eventually you're halfway through the website and you go, you know what? It feels like I'm on a loop. You have to find new ways of saying things and keep yourself from repeating so that everything is fresh and everything is systemized and communicates well on your website. Nibbler will also tell you whether your website is too heavy with links that you click internally, although it is a very good idea to have internal links, which means there's a link that says, do you want to know more about us? Go to this button, and that'll click and take you to a different page, which you may not necessarily
Sorry,
see.
Nico,
Yes,
before you continue, I can't hear
yes.
you anymore. Brandon, is it just me or is it
No, I can hear Nico loud and clear.
okay,
Okay,
great.
because I can put on, should I put
Okay,
my,
continue, Nico. Thank you.
okay. Okay. So, yes, internal links, it's very good to have this exercise where you keep an audience engaged and you can figure out how many times you could click and keep them inside your world. But it is also good to have 3 or 4 of those very critical ones that'll take you to Instagram, take you to LinkedIn, take you to maybe Facebook or a TikTok, where you are doing different types of communication or short burst or beautiful visuals. And that would, of course, be external links. Nibbler will tell you whether you're on track with that. And that's about as much as I'm going to talk about brand audit, because I want to move on. Something that's really important in terms of the name of your brand and why we use names leads me to have this conversation with people to think a little bit about the importance of a name. Now, everybody here has a name, and if I go online, Patricia is there, and Londiwe is there, and Anastasia is there. I spoke to her moments before we went on air. Hello. And names are important because names help us to identify people, right? We call it a proper noun. It's written with a capital letter. It's for recognition, for status, for self-perception. It helps to get connectivity. It builds legacy, and so on and so on and so on. And if you think about it, most brands are also written with a capital letter. And so for me, brands are like people too, because we write them with a capital and it's a proper noun. And because of this, I feel that it's important to see a brand as a person. And when you start communicating on behalf of your brand online and you're writing a message or you're composing a post, it's really important that you try and hold together a vision of what that personality is, because the personality it articulates your brand. benefits, qualities, uniqueness, and so on. So we're going to do a little exercise in this space, and I want you to think a little bit. When we do the exercise in the book, we usually have a little T-shirt because we go, what is there that you're particularly proud of about your brand that you would put on a T-shirt and show the world? I'm going to give you about a minute to think a little bit about qualities of your brand that you are really proud of. Okay? So take 30 seconds or so and think about qualities that you possess that make you. Remember, we talked about brands being unique. You are unique, Patricia, because of who you are, the way you deal with people, your smile, the friendliness, the way that you deal in crisis. And those are all qualities that your brand possesses, and you should be able to reflect that. So think a little bit about that kind of wording that you could do if you had to have 3 T-shirts. Think of at least 3. Okay, I'm going to give you
Can
30
I
seconds.
ask that you all put it into the chat as well, so all of us can have a
Great
look at
idea.
what the
Great
qualities
idea.
are?
Great idea. I'm reaching out for my phone because I forgot to time us, Jayshree, but we did start about 6 minutes late, so I'm not really running late yet.
How many
And I'm not
minutes do you have for this exercise, Nico?
just a minute. It's a quick
Just
thing.
a
I
minute.
just want you to
Okay, good.
reflect on this a little bit. So if those words can come running in, I'll share you some of mine that I had. For me, integrity is really important, and honesty, and not cheating people, and giving people value, and saying what you did you would, or doing what you said you would. Excellence is always important. The highest quality that we can achieve is important. And for me, it's also important to have joy. We do the work that we do, and we are entrepreneurs because we also want to bring joy to the world. And we have to have joy. If something's killing it for you, then you shouldn't be doing it. So joy and a happy experience is important to me. There's some great ones: purpose, growth, golden heart, efficient, excellent, beautiful, beautiful, and education. Thank you, Jayshree. So those are ideas, and start thinking about, when you're composing your message, how you will also incorporate those into what it is that you say. Now, first impressions are most critical. If you meet John and you think John's a little bit of clumsy when you first see him, almost every time that you see him do, even if somebody else bumped him, you would think that he's the clumsy one. You know how it is, because that first impression that you had of a brand sticks. And then you'll start looking for things that make John look clumsy. So first impressions and how you introduce your brand and how you get to be there. Be there with smile, be there with warmth, be there with integrity, be there with authenticity. Those things are going to stick. And I wanted to ask you to think a little bit about what people are saying about your brand. Now, I have a story for you at this stage. I mean, this is something that just happened last week. I think it was Wednesday morning. I had quick breakfast with Paul DeToy, is a speaker on the Professional Speakers Association, and he said to me, "Would you help me to create a show reel?" And I said, it's very expensive to do a gloss show reel because I see something that's a big stage that shows you as the star on the stage with lots of people in the auditorium. And I know that you don't often have an opportunity to shoot something like that, but it's going to be costly. So I have this idea that we put together 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 of the speakers who are in a similar space, and we hire a really big space and we make it really spectacular, but we share the budget because it's going to be too expensive for just your budget to go and make such a show reel. And he thought it was an excellent idea. And he said, you know what? I'm on a mastermind group with some 8 of the top speakers. Let me push something into that group and see what they think. And about 3 hours later in the afternoon, this was what he sent me, which is what people were saying about doing this with Nico. And it was a really great moment because it was just nice to see some really famous people that I didn't even know who knew me say things like, "Yeah, Nico is a pro," or "I'm in too. Geez, we love Nico." And so it's an exercise that made me realize how important it is sometimes for you to test the waters and figure out what people are saying about you. And you could do it this way. You could even just text a few people. You could text some clients that are close to you or that you feel you have a comfortable relationship with, and just ask them to go, "Give me 3 words that come to mind." Or you could do something a little bit more formal by giving something away to your clients or saying in a post, "Please help us describe this brand," or "How do you feel when you use my product?" or "What comes to mind when you see this?" Because it does one of 2 things. in this instance with Paul, it really helped to boost my visibility and my credibility by other big speakers also saying that they know me or they know of my work. And if you do the same in a space where clients and customers can talk about your brand, you of course have to be able to take it on the chin if something is not great about it. But you can get the message out there and you can get feedback, which is almost a kind of testimonial firsthand of people who are using your product or using your brand or experiencing it. So what are the things that you know that customers love about your brand? And usually when we do the exercise, I do this as a heart and people write the words on the heart. So give me some of your heart here. Let me know what you think at least 3 things are. I'm going to run for about a minute. I'm not going to sing. I'll just remind you of the kind of things. Is to see what words describe that clients use to describe your product, your service, your brand. Really critical because these are really great emotional connections. And you'll see if you go back after this exercise and you start interrogating what you've written on your website about your brand, you may start wondering why there's so much jargon and whether you can cut down some jargon. And you may start thinking about getting more warmer language in there that is emotional and emotive and connects with audiences, because there are real people who love what you do, but you have to connect with them in that way, right? So let's see some of those words: powerful, efficient, service with a smile. There's some. I was saying, world class again, because I think a lot of us, online enables us to work internationally. And so I think it's very important to be of a level that is not making any excuses to be third world or second cousin to anybody. I like creative solutions, new ideas, fresh, and so on. And then again, just love the experience, warm experience. We've got health, kindness, peaceful environment, creative, freshness, solutions. Yes, Lucia, absolutely. That's exactly where we're at. We love that. So this is a little exercise you can do going into that space of figuring out how people perceive your brand. Now let's start talking about this brand voice online, right? As I begin to wrap this already, we're going to talk about consistency of tone. Very often in a brand audit, we will come across messaging that is not consistent. If you're an entrepreneur fighting an incredible battle the one day, you can't be down and complaining about the world another day. It doesn't make sense because you don't seem like a leader. If there's something that you have in your mind to be somebody who's on the forefront of discovering things, being creative, then you can't go with a quote that's done by somebody a million times a day online. You have to have something that's unique and special and shows how forward-thinking and how out there you are. So you can see how the consistency of tone needs to align with how you see yourself and what it is that you're proud of most proud of, and how people perceive you and how they experience your brand and your service and product. So consistency of voice is really important. Powerful visuals. See if there's that one visual that you can have that has the home run, that just hits it home and shows people exactly what the emotion is of somebody using your brand, being with your brand, experiencing what your product does. And of course, explain the benefits and what people get out of it, and that those USPs, very, very important. Connect. Whichever way you can, see if you can connect emotionally. Stories are good. Stories about you, story about what your brand does, stories about where your company comes from. Jayshree says, after that speeding up, can we go for another 10 minutes? I can, because I've got another exercise. Okay. I've been rushing to talk too fast. Okay, so I have.
Nico, can
Mhm.
I also interrupt? Can I
Yes,
also just ask you to, focus some of this on, the LinkedIn angle as well?
absolutely.
Because I know it's really
Absolutely.
important to them. So, take your time with this. We'll get into Q&A a little bit later.
Okay.
Oh, take
Okay.
another 10, 15 minutes and let's
All right.
try and give them as many tools as possible.
Okay. It just so happens I'm going to do another tool with you, but it just so happens that I'm quickly going to talk to you about LinkedIn and something specific that I started doing. If you see some of my posts, you'll notice that people are often commenting. I get a lot of comments on my posts. Now, what I'm going to teach you is a little secret to do that because the algorithms on LinkedIn perceive that kind of communication or rapport as something that is shareable. And because of it, it'll shoot up your visibility on the feed like crazy. So if you're used to getting 30 or 40 comments or 30 or 40 impressions, and you start getting 10 comments or 20 comments, your impressions are going to shoot up to 2,000. And if somebody who is high profile and has lots of people that they follow happens to pick up on that and they comment, it's going to shoot up to 10,000. So this is a little secret that I have. And as LinkedIn buddies, the reason I have a number down there is that's actually my number. And you are welcome to join our LinkedIn buddy groups. I belong to about 4 or 5 buddy groups, and they sit in different spaces. And depending on what it is that I'm posting, we share the URL of what we are posting in a group on a WhatsApp chat. And what happens is people during a particular time, particularly within an hour from when you post, comment and leave comments on your post. And that means when you come back and respond to that, it seems like that there is a real interaction happening. And this sparks more conversation, or it means that you land up on more people's feeds because it just keeps growing. There's also something interesting that happens. If there are new people that you connect with and you go the next day or two and you connect with them physically on LinkedIn, it means that your network is growing. Now, I want to tell you about a friend of mine who took this advice and she started with, I think she had something like 1,800 followers or links, connections on LinkedIn. She religiously took 1 hour every morning, every Monday to Friday for 6 months. And do you know that she grew her network into Africa to 20,000 people? It's remarkable. So she has 20,000 people, and many of them are now her clients because then something crazy happened. We called it COVID, and she had an online connectivity like you cannot believe of potential clients right across Africa. So even though she had been planning to get into Africa with her product, the moment that this happened, she had a network that knew about her. And when she started reaching out from South Africa, she started doing a lot of work online. So it really is something that even just nurturing your post and staying with it for half an hour or 40 minutes and commenting and responding and liking and connecting with people is an actual job that is growing your network in such a way that I cannot tell you how very important that is to do. So if you're going to do LinkedIn buddies, just send me a text that says, I want to be a buddy, and I will record your name with your name, and then I will put you in a group. And basically the LinkedIn, I'll send you the details of how we do it as well. The group operates every day at around about 5 o'clock because for South Africa, we found that that was the best time. And now this generally was going to be where I'm finished. And Jayshree, I do have something else that I wanted to talk about. So can I continue? Jayshree's gone.
Absolutely, Nico, go for it.
Okay, so this is another exercise that I think is really handy, and I want to suggest it to you because it's a lot of fun also. It's an exercise to see your brand or your product as a movie poster. So what movie posters do really well is they manage to find an image and a short phrase and a title that grips your imagination. If you ever think about it, I mean, I remember seeing Aliens as a kid. That was back in the 80s, but Aliens had a genre of movie as horror that they positioned as in space, no one can hear you scream. Can you remember that? That is the most horrific tagline or positioning for something because it was that powerful. So if you use these 3 or 4 ideas to create a movie poster for what you're trying to communicate, and you put it handy somewhere near your computer or so, and when you write a post, you remember that that's the movie you're writing for, you're going to find that it's going to help you to dial into that emotion and to that excitement about your brand to keep the focus going. And the exercise is literally to pick a type of genre. Is it a family movie? Is it a dystopian end of days world? What space is your brand operating in? And name the movie. Give it a fun name. If it were a good family name, a family movie, give it a name that'll appeal to that kind of audience. If it is something that's more of a drama or a personal situation, do that as a personal homecoming story or whatever that positioning would be, the genre of your movie. And then the name, and then a striking image. Think of something that is a visual that is more emotional about what you can show that will make people connect. Think about the colors. Think about the style that it is in. Is it drawn? Is it a super photoreal photograph? Is it something fantasy? Is it something that is soft for a female audience? Is it technical and precision driven? Is it conservative for a banking space? All of those things are visuals that you can find that represent your brand and what you do with your product in such a dynamic way that an image can, as the saying goes, speak 1,000 words. And then find that tagline. Play a little bit around with a tagline that'll really make people jolt their attention and go, oh my word, I get what this is. These are some examples that I've had for some of my clients in sessions. Here was a story. This is a company that helps companies with computers and older technology, and they went humanity not found. And you see, this is a story about customer service dystopia. When the world is too much, one conversation can change everything. Isn't that a beautiful positioning? Because it helps you to remember that even when you're stressed, one call from this company could help you to solve your problem. Here's another one. A great journey begins with uncertainty. This one ends in success. From chaos to clarity. This is also a tech company that helps people. A trusted guide sometimes transforms a local team into a successful, high-performing individuals. And the picture that goes with it. Here's a different brand. This is when the world was on the edge of ruin. One force stood between destruction and destiny. Ending chaos. This is a company also, this is technology that helps you to systemize a story of power, order, and mastery of complexity. It says what the company does. And that's an idea for you to start playing with, to see how you'd create a poster for your own company that you can put in as a visual and work towards always describing that visual, living in that world and communicating what there is in that space. So that's kind of the end of it. Now I really have a logo that says Finn. And I hope that there was something in there that you found worthwhile, that you can help you guide your communication and your messaging in a direction that is really focused and consistent so that your audience gets to bump into the same kind of message all of the time. The last parting shot that I will give you, I sat with Shelley Walters, who is the great sales guru in South Africa, and she says, you know, it takes people up to 6 or 7 times of exposure to a message before it sinks in. And think how often you do something by sending a sales message out once, email your whole database of 10,000 people once, and then you don't do something for 6 months. No wonder they don't respond. They need to be reminded because everybody is busy. People are busy. So make sure that you have a consistent message that comes as a single focused idea and people can get used to it. And that is really it. I'm going to shut down now, Jayshree.
Thank you so much, Nico. I mean, that was absolutely brilliant. So, Nico, you can stop your share from your side. I want to give an opportunity to those that have joined us a little bit late, but you did come in when Nico was presenting. Nico has offered his time to one lucky business. So please put your website into the chat if you have not done so already. For those that have, we've already put your name on an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to do a random number generator and select that towards the end of the session. But Nico, I want us to have this conversation. So I've known Nico, he gave it away a little bit for maybe close to 2 decades, getting close to 2 decades now. And it's been a long time. And, you know, when you meet some individuals, you just realize that they can add so much value to your business. But also you have an opportunity to collaborate with individuals like this. So Nico has added so much value to uplifting the brand of some of the businesses to help us create professional videos. And I stress the word professional because it's important when you are looking at your brand and you're looking at your presence online. It's really important to separate who you are to who your company is. But sometimes as entrepreneurs, we are the face of the company and we are the voice of the company. So, Nico, we always have these very conflicting viewpoints from technical experts. Build your business brand. And I also believe strongly in building a business brand. And that's one of the reasons we have sessions like this, because as Yidi, we have launched so many different programs and so many different initiatives like WOMEX, like IBM TechScale, like the GD program, all of which you assist us with from time to time. But how do you feel about also growing that personal brand while pulling your business brand along? Because that's what I do a lot of. I use my voice to increase the awareness of my companies, that we focus on. So I'd really love your thoughts on the professional brand versus the personal brand and how we use each other and where do we use it most effectively.
Thank you. That's a very great, and it's something I can say, follow what Jayshree does because you do it really well. Networking is something that is personal, and I think that because of that, your own brand and your own personality is always connected to the brand. And even on LinkedIn, for example, you notice that when you post something as a brand, it isn't as easy for people to like and comment and mention the brand, and it doesn't travel as much as when you do it. So here's the first tip around that. I would say if you want to build something for your brand, you post it under the brand and then share it in your personal capacity. And you'll find that the impressions will still go to the brand, but it'll come via your personality and your profile. Not the only reason for doing it, I just think that when you work on a business for so long, you do become the spokesperson or the face of that business, particularly as the founder, particularly as the CEO. And it is important to build your own profile because personalities have access and a foot in the door, which a brand may sometimes not. And because of that, I think it's a very important thing to always look for engagements where you can share information, engagements where you can connect with people and network, because the networking happens face to face, and people are still at the heart of every business. So that's what I think, Jayshree. I really do think it's a key balance to get right. The personality makes the connection, and from there, the business happens and flows.
Thank you so much for that, Nico. So if we have any questions while we have this brilliant mind on the line with us, let's get some of those hands up and we'll manage those for you, Nico. So don't stress about it. Let's just
Okay.
see if we have any questions from any of the ladies or gentlemen on the line. Please feel free to put your hands up.
Do I do a
Okay.
song
I
dance number?
see we
There's a
have some
question.
camera shy. So
Okay.
Brandon, do you have any of those word clouds for us that you can share?
Yes, I
Are there any
certainly do.
of them
Just a
ready?
moment.
Okay, great. Brandon has been creating some word clouds for us in the background, Nico, with some of
Excellent.
what you've shared, so we can actually discuss some of those. If there's any questions, ladies, put your hands up and I'll come to you. I'll ask you to unmute and you can ask your question whenever you're
Excellent.
ready,
Hello,
Brandon.
Brandon. Thanks. Okay.
Right. So this is a bit light, difficult to see, but can you see, Nico?
I see.
Excellent
Privilege
came up
live
quite a
and live.
bit.
My note on, I know that I also had excellence because I think to me, excellence means something in a similar way that professionalism does. Being professional doesn't mean that you get a salary for something and that's why you're professional. There's something that is a standard. So in my mind, even words like excellent and professional have a heavier weight because of the way that I perceive them. And I think people who work with me will understand that. Whereas sometimes you may look at somebody using the word excellent or maybe using the word professional, and you feel that it's too generic. So when you start thinking about your own brand and how you're going to communicate, it's not a bad idea to go and play a little bit with, almost do a little bit of a thesaurus exercise and go look a little bit deeper at words that have a deeper meaning and a more precise meaning to you. For me, example, I use integrity, but brand integrity for me is something that means so much more. You know, I have the example. I was once in a class about ethics, and the lecturer was asking people about ethics, as in, you work in a company and there's a position open. Do you tell your cousin's son who's looking for a job to come for an interview? Now, some ethics rules would say maybe that's even overstepping the line, but nobody had a problem at that stage. And later, when he was saying, so how would it be if the the meeting happens for the interview and the cousin is now in the meeting? What is there that you should do? And there were people in the room who didn't think it important to excuse themselves. You know, so integrity and ethics and those things sit in a space where everybody perceives it differently. And I think if you use a word like excellent, it's also important to frame it in the context of your business and how you see excellence and why your excellence is so remarkable. You should position it as a USP if that's what you're going to do.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And it's so interesting. I see we have Anastasia on the line with us, and Anastasia actually runs a printing business, Nico.
Mhm.
In fact, she does a lot of t-shirts. She's done a lot of t-shirts for us in the past. You know,
Fantastic.
she's even done Ellie's wedding t-shirts. She's done Womex branded stuff. So Anastasia, I can see her on the line. So Anastasia, I mean, how have you seen your clients? So I'm not talking about you now as a business, but when you ask your clients to give you their messages for their t-shirts, I mean, do they actually struggle? Because that exercise Nico did, I thought was fascinating since you're on the call with us. Tell us, Anastasia, how do they actually engage with you? Is their message clear enough?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Yeshri, for putting me on the spot. Yeah. um, I just want to say firstly, Nico, I need you.
I saw your, thank you. We'll talk for sure.
Powerful. So what they do, Jeshri, they most of my clients actually sends me the pictures via WhatsApp. And they say, this is what we're looking for on our t-shirts. And then I ask the question, what do you want to achieve with this t-shirt? You know, what must stand out for you? So when people wear the t-shirts, what is important for you? Do we do it A5, A4, or pocket size? So they send it 90% via WhatsApp messaging.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Anastasia. So what do you need from Nico? What is it that you think you need? Besides the prize, right now while he's here, what do you need from him?
Nico, being a woman in business for 11 years, 12 years this year.
Well done.
Thank you. When I started my business, it was just to be my own boss. And when we did the logo of my company, being a single mommy raising a boy and a girl in a community that is ridden with drugs and alcohol and stuff, I was thinking legacy, generational wealth. So what will be the thing that makes me wake up? And I use my children's hands. So it's hands-on approach, and then I've got my daughter's hands and I've got my son's hands, and they keeping the logo. And because I'm in printing, we take your white canvas and we make a beautiful picture with it. I thought color. When I designed that logo, they thought it was a kindergarten that I was running. That's why I looked at all the stuff you were saying, like, no, I'm a printer. So with our last weeks, with Raksha sharing about brand, and I'm like, I have to rebrand. I have to do everything afresh. I have to start afresh. And one of the motivations as well was Womex. When we started last year with Womex, and I have one of my young people working here with me, and she's doing graphics. I looked at it and I said, it said that this is a business about women we're starting out and here we are. But this new logo that we did for Jeshri says, we are professional. We are here to help. We are here to support. Take us seriously. And I love this logo.
Yeah.
And so I need to rebrand. I need to rebrand completely. So yeah, I need you.
Look, I think
Tell the right
that's
story.
and I think and that's why I say the same about African Code. You know, it's a brave move to do, and it's hard to rebrand because it means a lot of stuff, and sometimes it comes with deep emotional connection. But it doesn't have to be a complete throw everything out and start new. Your idea and your departure point sounds very clean and very beautiful and charming to me, and that's your origin story, you know. It's a mom with two kids, and it's a beautiful origin story. You shouldn't lose it, but there may be something that you can do to just step it into the future or to bring it out, you know.
Yes.
So it's something that you do it sensitively with every brand. It's different. Sometimes you look at a brand and you go, I don't think, you know, like that in the case of the trains. They said, you know, sometimes people don't understand what I'm doing, and I said I can see why, because when I went online and looked for Robo Steam Train, it threw out the South African Society of Miniature Railways for me. You know, there's a problem. You want to be searchable, and you want people to understand quite clearly what it is. But if the origin story of your brand is powerful, then you should use it, and you have something that's beautiful, so use it. It should be more central to everything that you do because you've achieved this over the 11 years, and that's marvelous, you know. So caution when you rebrand, but I can see ideas around. I can see immediately what you're talking about, and you could almost make it something that goes from handheld and touch and real tangible to digital and future and could go anywhere. But don't lose the empathy that the child hands have for you, because empathy is a very important thing for clients to connect with. And I think your logo should have that. There should be something that reaches out and makes people emotionally, you know, connect. When
Thank you. Thank you so much for that response, Nico. Sorry, finish up.
I had something else. You know, when I was looking at it, and actually at one stage, I'm quickly going to pull up this picture, Jayshree, if I can. I was on the weekend. You know, when I'm busy working on a talk or something, you always look or think about it. And I don't know if anyone's familiar. This club must have been around for 20 years in Melville. It's called the Six Cocktail Lounge. And I wanted to have it as part of a conversation today because it's potentially one of the worst logos I've seen in my life. But it's charming and it's been alive for 20 years. So am I wrong? Emotionally, there are people who, even in 2005, 2006, are sitting there singing karaoke and having a wonderful night on their website. And you can't fault that. That was their 15th birthday. And it's just awful with a funny, strange gold and purple and stuff. But you know what? It works. And there's a market who loves it. In that instance, you couldn't possibly rebrand. You have to do what you're doing because you've been doing it for 20 years and it works. So don't break it. But, you know, as far as logo goes, to have the S at the back, the I in the beginning, and the X, which is the end of the word in the middle of the logo, makes absolutely no sense. But it works. So sometimes you have to, when you talk about brands and branding, sometimes you have to go, you have to take it in context, you know. I know of stories where a brand, I think it was the Black Like Me brand, had it was a soap that for all those years had a lady with a 60s lady with a twiggy hairstyle and makeup on the soap. And when they wanted to rebrand to really talk to their market, with a black lady and a face that should be recognizable and representative, nobody bought the soap anymore. And they realized the truth of it was their market did not read, and their market went for a face that they trusted since the 60s and 70s. And that's what they bought when they bought the soap. So suddenly the icon that they were buying, not the logo, wasn't on the soap anymore, and they couldn't find it on the shelf. So branding, you have to be very careful when you rebrand, because if it's something like that, fast-moving consumables, you have to be very careful with how you brand or rebrand.
Thank you, Nico. That's a wonderful example. And, it ties into a conversation
Mm,
Anastasia and I had earlier in the week as well.
mm.
So before we get into the prize that we're going to give away, which I want
Yes.
to announce, I want you to answer this question very quickly from
Mm.
Alice. She says, is it a bad idea to repeat my original posters with words of wisdom on my business social platforms, maybe once or twice quarterly if inspired by something? Thanks. But you did say repetition is key,
Look,
right? You have to read something 6 times.
I think that you have to measure how recognized it was at the time, how recognizable it will be now when you repeat it. And I think you have to make sure that you don't get an audience, if it's the same audience that are going to bump into it. Don't repeat an old image from 5 years ago or an old post verbatim because it looks like you're lazy. You have to bring it into context. Um, I would also say that sometimes a message, if you posted something that you posted during lockdown, chances are the world has changed so much that the lens that you would look at that same message at would have adjusted. And you must just be aware of that. So when I talk about the tone and when I talk about the language that you use, it has to be relative and relatable to your audience today. It mustn't feel retro or old or just reworked. But certainly you can use old visuals again, or maybe restyle them or frame them differently. But I'd be careful not to use old material, just recycling it. I would definitely adjust it or make it fresh or make it relevant. That's what I would think. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Nico. So I have on my phone something called a random number generator,
You are
which is
so technical.
but I'm going to try and keep it fair for audit purposes. I put everyone's name on an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
And Nico, if I can ask you, you know what? Just select a number, Nico, from 1 to 9, because it's your prize. And then
One to nine.
yes, what's the number from
I
1 to
was
9?
going to say three. I was going to say seven, but I'm going to say five.
You're going to say 5. Kale,
Yes.
congratulations. You are number 5. Look at that.
Congratulations.
So, Kale, I'm going to ask you to just switch on your microphone and tell Nico why you're so excited for this prize.
Oh,
Thank you and
Nico,
well done.
thank you,
Hello.
Jason. Hi, Nico. Thank you so much. The reason why I am so excited is because, like Anastasia, I really believe that I need to do a bit of not rebranding, but maybe just a little bit of tweaking in
Hmm.
terms of my brand. I've also been doing quite a bit of LinkedIn posting and, not sure if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm doing the wrong thing. So I think this is going to be just amazing for me. So thank you so
Well done.
much.
Thank you. And thank you for the good energy. I've been looking at your smile all along going, okay, somebody likes what I'm saying. Thank you. It's actually lovely faces. Thank you, everybody. It's such a thrill to do this. It's really fun.
Thank you so much, Nico. So, Brandon, you had one more word out to share with us. I think it was the other question that Nico had asked.
Mhm.
We're going to just wait for Brandon to get that up. What words clients use to describe your brand? Nico, I'm sure you can see that.
Hmm.
So
Live.
service came up big, hey? Very
Hmm.
good.
Service. I think here's the interesting thing. I mean, after after COVID, something really strange happened to me because I was a small company that was left behind by the corporates. I had to fend for myself and do something completely different and do a three sort of 180. And after that, I was very sure that I was never going to go back to eating at a spur or one of those places. I was never going to do that again. I find little boutique places. And the reason that I do that is since that time, those smaller people try harder. It's almost like that race. If you know the story about Al Reese and Jack Trout, they talk about perception as reality. They talked about they were helping Avis, and you remember Avis was actually fourth on the list of motor cars. And they help them to change their messaging to saying, we know that we're third, but that's why we try harder. And it became a tagline for them that made them a world leader now in rentals of cars, because we try harder. And that idea of somebody being second or third and being willing to push their service to be greater, bigger, work harder with it, became something that was entrenched in their audience's mind, and it worked for them, and it still continues to work. So for me, service is, yes, absolutely, I want service excellence, but I want it with a personal touch, or I want it with magic, or I want it with, so how would you define your service? Because service would be what it is that you offer, and it is absolutely the thing that we should promise. But what's the twist that you put onto it that makes it yours, that makes it unique to you and to your brand? Because that's the sweet spot that makes somebody go, even if it is service with a smile, I mean, it's too generic, but it begins to be something else. And, you've got to find your magic. And these are exercises that I was trying to do with you, to go try and identify your magic, but delve deeper. Don't just go with these 3. Go back and make a list of 30 words. Make a list of 40 words and find the one that goes jumping off the page. And that's going to be your personality for the brand.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Nico. I love working with you, and that's why we continue to work for just so many years. I thank you for your time. Thank you everyone for joining us. Those of you that joined for the live chat with Nico, and those of you that are watching the recording. Next week, Mentorship Monday, we have an amazing entrepreneur that's going to be talking about how to get funding ready. What are some practical tips that she has used to unlock over R1 million in funding from different funding institutions. And she's going to give you practical examples. So these are real technical experts we want to bring in front of you. The recording will be shared with everyone. Nico, thank you again, and have a wonderful, wonderful week forward, ladies. And congratulations again. Our winner today was Kale, and she's going to be enjoying her prize. We'll share more about it on social media as well. Thank you, Nico. Have a
Thank you,
lovely
everybody.
afternoon. Bye.
Nice to meet you. Thanks. Cheers.
Bye.